Welcome to the debate. So, before we really dive into today's topic, I want to invite you to join this conversation. If you get something out of, challenging your own assumptions or looking at old ideas in a new light, please subscribe to the channel, like the content, or drop a comment below. We really do want to hear your perspective. Today we're trying to dissect a tension that I think sits right at the heart of the modern experience. It's this conflict between the curated self, the version of us that wants approval, that follows all the rules and really just wants to feel safe, and the terrifying raw reality of who we are when no one's watching. We're looking at the ancient parable of the publican and the Pharisee. Now, if you've heard this story, it's usually taught as a simple moral lesson. Don't be arrogant, be humble. But we're going to argue that reading is dangerously shallow. We aren't talking about manners here. We're talking about self-deception as a kind of structural trap.
It is a structural trap, you're right, but we have to be very precise about the mechanism. My argument today is that we're not just talking about feelings or, humility as a virtue. To really get this text, we have to apply a rigorous filter. We're going to look at this parable through the lens of Francis Bacon, the father of the scientific method, and specifically his theory of the idols of the mind. The argument here is that the church is presented in this text not as a place of worship, but as a kind of hospital for perception, a science designed to fix the cognitive errors that keep us from seeing reality clearly.
Okay, and that is where I immediately start to get a bit skeptical. You want to turn a story about, human heartbreak and spiritual longing into a schematic, a blueprint. I'm representing the seeker here, the person trying to find an identity in a world that just demands performance. When I read this, I don't see a cognitive error. I see a man, the Pharisee, who has done everything right according to his culture. He pays his taxes, he follows religious laws, he's a pillar of his community, and he's being vilified for it. Why is success suddenly the enemy?
He isn't being vilified for doing things right. He's being diagnosed with a fatal error in how he processes data. My position is that we have to stop reading this psychologically, worrying about his feelings, and start reading it epistemologically. And that's a big word, but it just means, how do we know what is true? Bacon identified 4 idols, 4 distinct ways the human mind lies to itself. So my thesis is that the Pharisee isn't bad in a cartoon villain sense. He is scientifically compromised. He's looking at the world through a dirty lens. The publican, on the other hand, isn't good because he feels sad. He succeeds because he applies the scientific method to his own soul. He admits the data is bad.
Let's pause it on that because I think you're dismissing the psychological weight of it all a bit too easily. My position is that the Pharisee represents the universal human condition of insecurity. We build these caves, our careers, our moral high ground, our social status because we're terrified of the dark. The Pharisee is successful. He's a good citizen. The publican is a collaborator, a traitor, a total wreck. So my argument is that the text is showing us that our success is actually the thing that blinds us. It's not a data error, it's a defense mechanism. The Pharisee is trapped because he feels safe. The publican is free because his life has become completely unlivable.
But why is he trapped? That's the core question. You say defense mechanism. Bacon says idol. Let's look at the first one, the idols of the tribe. Bacon argues this is an innate deformity in human nature itself. Think of it like looking into a warped mirror. If the mirror isn't flat, everything it reflects is going to look warped.
And in the text, this connects to the idea of original sin. But again, sin is such a loaded word, it just sounds like guilt. I prefer to think of it more like a default setting. The idols of the tribe is maybe just our evolutionary drive to survive, to prioritize our own comfort over hard truths. Is the Pharisee really committing an error, or is he just, being human? We all naturally want to be the hero of our own story.
That is precisely the error. The idol of the tribe is the baked-in assumption that my human sense of things is the standard for the entire universe. Material describes this as an anthropological fracture. So it's not that the Pharisee is just being human, it's that his instrument of measurement, his own mind, is fundamentally warped. He looks at God and he doesn't see another, he sees a mirror. He assumes, before anything else, I am good, therefore God must approve of me. He's forcing the data to fit his desired conclusion.
So he's just confirming his own bias. He looks out at the world and only sees the evidence that supports what he already wants to believe about himself.
It's deeper than confirmation bias. It's a hallucination. He stands in the temple and prays, "God, I thank you that I am not like other men." He isn't actually praying. He's performing a soliloquy. He is talking to himself and using God as a prop. He creates a tribe of one where he is the chief. Now look at the publican. In the context of this idol of the tribe, the publican does something chemically different. He admits the fracture. He doesn't trust his own tribe instinct to justify himself. He says, "I am the sinner." He admits the instrument is broken.
But he only admits it because he's been crushed by life. This isn't some noble intellectual choice he made. He's hit rock bottom. And this brings us right to the second idol, which I think is even more relevant for us today. The idols of the cave.
Right. If the tribe is the species-wide error, the cave is the purely individual one. Bacon describes this as the distortion caused by our personal upbringing, our education, our little individual silos. It's like living in a tunnel and thinking that the little circle of light you see at the end is the whole sun.
And we all live in these caves. Today we call them echo chambers or algorithmic bubbles on social media. The Pharisee has a very nice cave. It's furnished with compliments, religious status, community respect. But here's where I challenge you. The publican is in a cave too. He's a tax collector, so he's in a cave of shame and isolation. Why is one cave better than the other? Why is the cave of guilt somehow more scientifically accurate than the cave of success?
Well, it's not about which cave is more comfortable. It's about who recognizes they are inside one. The Pharisee loves his cave. He has canonized his narrow experience. And here is the key distinction from the analysis that I really want to drill down on. The Pharisee treats God as a notary public.
A notary, that's a very specific job description.
Yes. And think about what a notary does. They don't write the document. They don't judge the document. They just stamp it to say this is valid. The Pharisee presents his life, his fasting, his tithes, his morality, and he expects God to simply stamp it, certified, correct. He wants his cave validated. He uses religion to make the walls of his bubble thicker. He isn't looking for a savior to pull him out of the cave. He's looking for a clerk to file his paperwork.
Wow, that's a heavy critique. You're saying he uses his religion to avoid ever actually encountering God. He wants a stamp, not a relationship.
Precisely. He wants to stay in his cave, but just feel divine about it. Now, the publican, his cave has collapsed. The trauma of his social position, the hatred from his peers, it has shattered his echo chamber. He cannot ask God to notarize his life because his life is a disaster. It's a mess. If a notary looked at it, they'd reject it on the spot. So he asks for something else entirely. He asks for mercy. He steps out of the subjective cave and into the objective reality of his condition.
I can see that. Pain is often the only thing that breaks the echo chamber because it's the one thing we can't spin. You can't just spin a broken leg or a broken heart. But let's move to the third idol, because this is where the Pharisee seems most correct on the surface, and yet you claim he's at his most dangerous, the idols of the marketplace.
This is the idol of language, the confusion of words. Bacon warns that words can become substitutes for reality itself.
Right, but the Pharisee is using all the right words. He talks about tithes, fasting, righteousness, sinners. These are the approved theological terms of his day. I mean, if we translate that to now, he's using the correct buzzwords for his political or social group. He knows the lingo. How can using the correct language be a trap?
Isn't language how we define what's true?
Not always. Sometimes language is how we hide from the truth. The analysis we're drawing from calls this the orgy of words.
Orgy of words. Okay, that implies a kind of excess, a chaotic mixing of things.
It implies that the symbols, the words, are mating with each other without ever producing any reality. Think of it like inflation in an economy. If you print $1 trillion but there's no gold or goods to back it up,
The money is just worthless paper. The idols of the marketplace happen when we trade words like currency, but there is no actual experience in the vault to back them up. The Pharisee is engaging in spiritual inflation.
So he's rich in words, but completely poor in reality?
Exactly. He calls the other man a publican. In the marketplace of his society, that word functions like a price tag. It means traitor, scum, unclean. He uses the word to diminish the actual human being standing behind him. He thinks that because he has labeled the man, he understands him.
Right. He's using labels to manage his reality. We see this everywhere today. We label someone toxic, woke, fascist, ignorant, and once we slap the label on them, we feel superior and we don't have to deal with the actual person anymore.
Precisely. It's a map that completely hides the territory. The Pharisee is trading in marketable terms. He's boosting his own stock price by lowering the publican's. But then look at the publican's language. It's incredibly sparse. It's minimalist.
He says almost nothing, just, God be merciful to me, a sinner.
He rejects the marketplace. He doesn't try to sell his case to God. He doesn't spin a narrative. He uses what the material calls naked truth. He collapses the distance between the word and the reality. He isn't saying, I made some mistakes, but I had a hard childhood and the economy is bad. He just says, I am a sinner. He is dealing in hard currency, the reality of his state.
So the science here is about linguistic precision?
It's about linguistic honesty. The devil enters the church and the mind through the gap between the word and the experience. If you can say, I love God, while despising the person standing right next to you, you are worshiping the idol of the marketplace. You're just playing a word game.
That brings us to the final barrier, the idols of the theater. Bacon calls this the blind acceptance of established systems, of dogmas. He likens philosophical systems to stage plays. They are artificial worlds that are consistent inside themselves, but they don't actually match reality.
Yes, he calls it the palace immunity of the script.
But wait, I have to push back here. We need institutions. We need traditions. We need experts. The Pharisee is a guardian of the law. If we smash the idols of the theater, aren't we just advocating for anarchy? Where is the line between respecting a tradition and, worshiping a theater?
And that is the crucial tension. The critique isn't of the institution itself, but of the reliance on the mask of the institution. Imagine an actor who plays a doctor on TV. He wears the white coat, he has the stethoscope, he says all the medical words. But if you have a heart attack, you do not want him working on you. The Pharisee is the actor. He enters the temple wearing a costume, not a literal one, but a psychological one. He wears his education, his status, his routine. He is playing the role of the righteous man.
So he confuses the role he's playing with who he actually is.
And he assumes God is just an audience member who's supposed to be impressed by the performance. He suffers from palace immunity, this belief that because he is inside the system, the rules of reality don't apply to him. He thinks, I am a Pharisee, therefore I am safe. He thinks the coat makes him a doctor.
And the publican? He has no script.
None whatsoever. The institution has already rejected him. He has no costume, no lines to read, no applause. He's standing off stage. And this is why he wins. Because he has no script, he is forced to improvise a genuine interaction with the divine. He cannot rely on the theater, so he encounters the real.
That is a profound distinction. The Pharisee brings a resume, the publican brings a wound. The resume is a prop in the theater, the wound is a biological fact.
Exactly. And Bacon's entire point, and the point of this science of the soul, is that you cannot know the truth until you clear away these idols. You have to smash the mirror of the tribe, step out of the cave, shut down the marketplace, and walk off the stage of the theater.
And that leaves you where? I mean, if you take away my tribe, my personal perspective, my language, and my role, what is left of me?
It leaves you alone, naked, vulnerable, without a single defense.
Which is terrifying. That sounds like a crisis.
It is a crisis. But in medicine, a crisis is the turning point. It's the only place where diagnosis and healing can actually happen. You cannot fix the bone until you expose the break.
So, if we pull all this together, we're looking at two totally different approaches to existence.
The Pharisee represents a closed system. He has all the right answers, the right behavior, the right community, but he's trapped in this endless loop of self-validation. He is scientifically blind because he refuses to ever calibrate his instrument.
He's trapped in a hallucination of his own goodness. He thinks he's healthy because he's painted, "I am healthy" on the walls of his cave. He never actually checks his own vitals.
And the publican represents the open system. He has no answers, no good behavior, no community, but what he has is access to data. He knows he's broken.
And that admission is what allows external reality, what theology calls grace, to enter the system. The science of the church, in this view, isn't about accumulating moral points. It's not bookkeeping. It is a method for breaking the illusions that distort our reality.
It just flips the script on what we think being religious even means. We usually think it means becoming more put together, more polished, more like the Pharisee. But this analysis suggests that the scientific path to God is actually about dismantling all that polish. It's about vulnerability, not performative perfection.
Correct. The church's method is to clean the lens, not to just paint a prettier picture on it. We need to stop asking God to be our notary, to just validate our current state. We have to acknowledge the fracture. The way of the publican is the path of reality. The way of the Pharisee is ultimately a delusion.
It leaves us with a difficult question for everyone listening. We all have our caves. We all use language to hide. We all perform on some kind of stage. The question is, are you looking for a notary to stamp your life as valid? Or are you brave enough to look at the naked truth?
Intellectual and spiritual honesty usually comes at a very high price, but the alternative is living in a theater of your own making, and eventually, the curtain always comes down.
On that note, we'll leave you to determine which idols might be cluttering your own perception. Thank you for listening to the debate. If this conversation sparked a new thought, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. We want to know, are you playing a role or are you real?
Until next time.
Welcome to the debate.